invest our money.
Okay. Rethinking of where to invest our money. The president has always given room to investment in industries lately. I don't know, is that a key priority that we can look at and say the investments into industrialization? Because even in our next financial year budget, you get to realize that agro or commercial agriculture is one of the key things that we are looking at. Should we say, when we look at commercial agriculture, that means the things that are being identified includes value addition of the agro products? I don't know how fast our farmers will adopt to that, but do you think it is the rightful kind of decisions we are taking?
I think the decisions are right, but if we plan right.
Okay.
So if you're looking to agro-industrialization, if we are to get there, then you will need to have a good quantity and quality of agricultural produce from the farmers.
Okay.
But if we ask, do our farmers have the capacity to produce the quantity and quality that is required to feed into the industries that we are going to come up with? One of the challenges that we are facing when it comes to the agriculture sector is poor quality of inputs, agricultural inputs. If you look at the seeds, the kind of seeds that our farmers are using,
yes,
they cannot give us good quality produce that we can use for industrialization. So as we are budgeting and thinking about agro-industrialization, we need to go back and think about the input. We need to think about other factors of production. If you look at the current situation, we have challenges around climate change.
Okay.
We are seeing challenges with regard to variations in our seasons, and yet our farmers depend on nature for agriculture. So if there is a heavy investment in what I call irrigation, then it can help out our farmers. But also there is a challenge currently that our farmers in villages face that is not being looked into. That is theft of food and animals. And if you look at the people that are stealing, they are the energetic ones, the young ones, the youthful ones that should be engaged in production, but they are stealing from the older people. And that has an effect that these few people that are engaged in agricultural production will give up, they will lose up, because whatever it is they are growing, some energetic guys are stealing it from their gardens. So it has an implication that when they give up and lose hope, then there is a likelihood that we will have food insecurity as a country, and then we will have less production. So as a government tries to invest in agro-industrialization, there is need to look at a farmer in the village, the challenges that they are facing, and be intentional on addressing those challenges so that you have the quantity and quality of produce that you need to feed into the industry.
Well, Steve, when you look at some of the, which decisions should we take in regards to investing in the right places so that we can at least attract revenues that are huge, and so that the Uganda Revenue Authority can meet its target? Because at least if we have enough money in our resource envelopes, it is hard for us to go in and overstretch, regardless of the fact that maybe corruption may be hard to kick out, but at least we still have where we generate good incomes as a country.
Okay. Thank you. I think first, though URA is not doing very well, but they have done some great work.
Okay.
The target is about 29.6 trillion in this budget will be domestically raised, which is something good. It is not the target we want, but they are doing something. However, how do we get to a point where we have money enough to finance the bigger part of our budget? There's a lot of informal sector, and we have continuously asked URA, can you try and get more ways? Can you try and give a favorable conditions for these small informal sector businesses to join the money economy, to join the formalization process where URA can easily get money? But if you look at the new budget, the new budget, which is starting next week, actually, what are the opportunities that are there? I think some of the investments are in the right place. Maybe we just need to increase the money. I'll give an example of women. Where will women benefit from this new budget that is coming up? You look at issues of 30% of the PDM, 30% of 1.1 trillion is going to women enterprises under the PDM. parish development model. If you look at there is a project being funded by World Bank called the GROW project. It is also close to 800 billion targeting women. So you see all these efforts are in the right place. You see about on just you were talking about issues of gender and equity. There is about close to 12 billion that is trying to work around that. Yes. And that comes in issues of mindset change, so that it positions the people to think innovatively. If you look at the youth, how will the youth benefit in this budget? There is also 30% of PDM is still going to capture the youth. There is also about 60 billion that is allocated for what? For youth in this coming, for skilling the youth. That is I believe that is in the right place. But our question we should be asking is, how can the youth tap onto these opportunities? There is 100 billion under microfinance support center that is going to capture the small businesses. Now, these businesses can only benefit if they are formalized, if these businesses have the right paperwork. But we believe there's businesses out there that have that right paperwork. And then also SACCOs. The SACCOs are also given some money. There's a Myoga fund. I mean, that actually 100 billion is for Myoga, and then the 46 billion is for what? For small businesses under the microfinance support center. So the question we are having, we have a small budget. We have to admit that. But how best can we utilize this? So all these figures I've tried to give you, it's targeting the women, the youth, the private sector. If you look at the entire budget, about 2.4 trillion is earmarked for the private sector. But also the PDM fund will also go to the private sector, because these businesses, small businesses and groups are in the private sector. Okay. So my concern is, yes, how do we get the youth, how do we get the women and the businesses to tap into this? How? I would give recommendation. One, we need to make sure that the citizens hold the duty bearers, the leaders accountable, the technical people, maybe at the local government, and because this money, the PDM funds, will go into the local government. Can you hold the district officials, the duty bearers accountable, and tell them this amount of money has come into the district, and as youth we are supposed to benefit from it? Then they find ways of tapping, because if the money is lying there, people are tempted to take this money and use it for their personal gain, and yet it is meant for the youth. That would be a comment.
Well, and of course you've mentioned something to do with getting the youth in here, and it brings me to the discussion in relation to Uganda Revenue Authority's move to at least clearly say that we continue to get these taxes or to collect as they get to, the revenue mobilization. According to what the president highlighted, is that I think it's more like what Stephen has mentioned, that they are doing something, but they are still, because the president said they are playing in the way they are, they are doing their activities, or in the way they are they're actually pushing for the revenue mobilization in one way or the other. Because you would realize, if we are saying 29 trillion, you may find that we may even fail to hit that target. Now, what happens? Again, we are heading into another kind of debt. How then are we going to make, how then can the Uganda Revenue Authority, for example, Mr. Puster here, how can they tap into these SMEs for now? Because most of the businesses are failing completely, because they're saying the taxes are high, and they tend to at least evade the taxes by either way failing to pay taxes, or filing their returns in time. At times, all this affects us. What should be done, really?
So what I think needs to be done is that I think we need to work on the cost of doing business in this country. The cost of doing business is very high.
Yes. In
terms of, I imagine, I look at a young person who has started up a small barber's salon somewhere, and they have to pay, a unit of electricity is 1,000, so they are paying 1,000 for electricity daily. Within no time, they will not be able to sustain that business. They will just have little left to them. So the best option would be for them to evade the taxes, because if they pay the taxes, they will have little or nothing that remains for them. So how I think government invests in creating a conducive environment for businesses to thrive. Because if you look at URA, what they are doing is really good, but they are just taxing a few people. They are taxing only around 22% of the population. If you look at the population structure in this country, the population structure is in a way that we have a lot of dependents. If you look at children, I think children make around like 50% of our population. And then if you look at the older people who are retired, they also create a certain percentage. So the most active population, age population that you have is around 20-something%. So you can imagine that URA is looking at the 20-something%. They are overtaxing those people. Every other day they are creating up a new tax. Those of us that pay taxes, every other time, especially last year, we would get messages, hello, you're supposed to pay this tax and you haven't paid the tax. So they are overtaxing the few people, the few businesses that are taxable. So what we need to do, or what you are working with the other stakeholders, what they need to do is to really have a discussion on how we can expand our tax base as a country. If we have an expanded tax base and people know that they are taxed a fee that is not so stringent, then they will be able to pay their taxes, and there is a likelihood that we will get more money other than overtaxing the few people, because you will have more people evade taxes. And that brings me to another thing that we can think about as a country that was a game changer for the Asian tigers, the countries we call the Asian tigers. The demographic thought about that, but it is critical that we need to think about it. How do we look at our population structure and have our investment right in a way that is going to cause economic growth for this country? So for us to be able to achieve the demographic dividend, what we have to do is we need to focus on reducing the rate of the fertility rate, because we are producing a lot. Yes. And then also the other one is
we're actually increasing room for human capital.
For human capital. But then you might think that we are increasing room for human capital, but then if you have a huge population, then you won't be able to invest in educating them. And they will also not have capacity. Look at the people in Uganda who don't have money to pay for their children's school fees, and the entire budget is on government. So this 52 trillion we are talking about is going to fund people's children, because they cannot pay school fees for their children. But if each family has a minimum number of children that they can manage, because for us to be able to achieve the best out of the human capital development that you talk about, is that we need to invest right. If you have fewer children, then that means you'll feed them on a balance. You will give them quality education, and that is how we grow our human capital. The human capital should not just be in terms of the numbers, it should be in terms of the quality. What is the quality of the numbers? That is what the Asian countries looked into. Because if you reduce the fertility rate and then you try to reduce the mortality rate, that means if I give birth to only 2 children or 3 children, and I'm feeding them well, they can access healthcare, they have quality education, they will make a much better contribution than if I had 10 that I've not invested in. So we might have to go back and look into that discussion and see how we invest right. We need to invest in having a productive population, and the productive population of a country is the one that is between 18 to around 60 years. That is the most productive. But how do you make it productive? You need to invest when they are still children. We have a lot of children that are malnourished in this country, and those are not going to contribute to the economic growth of the country. If they are malnourished at a younger age, by the time they become youthful, by the time they are older, they are sickly, they are what? They've not had a good education, so they will not be able to contribute to the economic growth of a country. So that is a broader discussion that we might have to think through as a country.
As a country. Okay, and before we go into a break, Mr. Stephen, looking at Uganda Revenue Authority's revenue mobilization strategies as of now, country towards enabling Ugandans to understand the taxes they are paying, they as well, putting in a lot of money to actually make sure that this also happens, including change of language in order to make sure that every community can understand the taxes available, how to pay, how to clear. But then you get to realize that we have an informal sector in Uganda that looks untapped, really, in regards to remitting taxes. Uganda Revenue Authority feels this informal sector should start paying the taxes. But then how are we going to get them comfortably into paying the taxes? And they should as well accept the move, because it seems the reason as why they don't want to pay these taxes is it's saving them or it's saving their businesses.
Okay, so let me just speak from a layman's point of view.
Yes.
We pay tax so that we expect good services.
True.
If you look at the recent saga when it rains, the floods in Kampala, the roads are bad, I believe your salary is taxed maybe 40%. Or pay as you
because when you, and of course the NSSF also comes in.
And then the NSSF and what. So you see, you feel the pain. But if you go and then you're in jam, it rains, you can't move, there's flood everywhere, you can't easily move. That is one discouragement. So for people to be able, from economics point of view, and I know people don't like to pay tax. People would not willingly. It is very, very rare that people would willingly pay tax. But if you get money from people, provide good services. That is the basis. If the hospitals are good, I go to the hospital. You are saying government hospitals are free. I know if I go to the government hospital, I'll get the services I need. That extra money, I can give it to you in taxes, because I don't need to go to a private hospital. If services are good, people, whereas it's in our mind that we don't want to pay tax. It's a human nature. But if the services are good and your money is taxed, because most of the taxes that actually go to URA are what? Mandatory tax. They are not voluntary. You don't willingly give the money. The money is automatically taxed. Like the VATs, the pay as you earn, the NSSF, those money, they just pick from your account, or when you buy something. But you are not willingly paying for it. So that is one aspect. If the services are improved, people will work. But also, you cannot, they say you cannot milk what you've not fed.
Exactly.
If you have a cow and you've not fed it, you will not get the milk.
You won't get it.
So, and this also relates to the business. If you have not nurtured a business to start being profitable, you cannot get tax from that business. You can actually bring all the businesses in downtown, up country, and register them and they are formal. But if they are not profitable, even if you train them, do the right thing, and they are not profitable, they will still not give you taxes, because they can file zero returns.
Okay.
Then you don't get the money. You have maybe 10 million businesses registered with URA, they are complying, but you don't get the money because they are filing zero returns, because they are not making money.
Okay.
Yes. So, and just before I conclude, we need to make the conditions right for these businesses. You need the small businesses and tell them, as URA, we want to see you grow. What can we do? Do you need training? But also, the government has to, you talk about the industrial parks that are being opened up. That's a good move. Because for people to pay tax, people has to have money. And for the businesses to get customers, me and you need to buy things. So if I have a job, if you have a job, you will demand for food, you will demand for sugar, and a shop next to your home which has opened will get businesses.
Yes.
And so the government is trying its best, but we need to increase, we need to see how to build the disposable income of the citizens.
Okay.
Reduce on unemployment.
Okay. Yeah. And of course, our key discussions are still rotating around Uganda's public debt and, of course, development. It is actually increasing. And when we return, we look at the measures to deepen the debt market as a country, and we look at debt sustainability here on the show. You're still watching The Point, where we analyze economic policies. Stick around.